Well, as the old saying goes, no good deed goes unpunished, especially in leadership. Today's guest shares a story about acting in the greater good of the company. Or was she? Stay tuned for another great episode of Bad Boss Confessional. Hi, I'm Beth Fahey, and welcome to Bad Boss Confessional. I've been a leader for over 30 years, and I'll be honest, I've made plenty of mistakes along the way. The thing is, those mistakes taught me more about leadership than any success ever did. This podcast is where we get honest about the moments we'd rather forget and discover why they're the ones actually worth remembering. Each week, I talk with leaders who aren't afraid to share their worst boss moments and what they learned from them. Because here's what I know: every great leader has a story they're not proud of. And this is where we tell those stories. Today's guest is Carolyn Mitchell, an EOS implementer who came to this work the hard way by living it first. She's been the founder, the sales leader, the one implementing EOS in her own companies before ever guiding others through it. Carolyn describes herself as a personal development junkie and is also a certified yoga teacher. She doesn't just want your business to hit its numbers, she wants your people to become more of whom they're capable of being. This is a conversation about leadership that grows humans, not just revenue. Let's talk to Carolyn Mitchell. Hey, Carolyn.
Hi, Beth. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you on Bad Boss Confessional. Although it's hard for me to imagine you ever being a bad boss because you're such a lovely person.
Oh, I don't know. I think we've all been there. There's no boss who can't own some of the trials and tribulations of getting there, right? Those cringe moments.
So tell us a little bit about your background, if you don't mind, if you would walk us through your career to date.
Sure. So I started my career actually as a mechanical engineer for a Fortune 100 company. Learned a ton there, but quickly craved a little more freedom and flexibility. So that led me into entrepreneurial life. Credit my business partner and husband for having me lean into that. Um, Once I found that life, I felt like I was working in a place of really being myself and the full expression of who I was and finding reward and fulfillment in the world. Um, that said, about 16 years into that life, I got a little bit of an itch and was coaxed to a leadership team of a company, a friend's business, where I got to learn something new. And at that time, EOS came on my radar and found great clarity and simplicity and genius actually in the system that is EOS. And over the course of time, instead of leading the team I was leading, I found I was more passionate about EOS than actually the product or service that we were exercising each day. And so that's how I ended up in the EOS life and meeting great folks like you, Beth.
Well, thanks. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. You're a little newer to our community, but we had a great retreat recently, and it was really nice to get to know you and to have, quite honestly, another woman in the Chicago metro area. Makes me so happy. So,
And I loved how you threw me to the board, threw me up in the front of the room. So, highlight of the weekend for sure.
well, most of us learn by doing, and you seemed game, so I thought, why not just throw her to the wolves?
I loved it. Appreciate
Good,
it.
good. Um, so I want to know. I My curiosity is getting the better of me. Mechanical engineer to sales. How did what? Huh?
Well, it's a short story. I was good at math and science, so I was ushered off to engineering school. And, to be honest, I took a marketing class for fun, like my junior year, and I called my dad and said, I'd like to switch my major to business and be a marketing major. And my dad said, Nope, you're not doing that. You can take a marketing job, but you're getting an engineering degree. And I was heartbroken at the time, but it was the right move. And I loved having that background, and it gave me street cred. I felt like, but I did migrate into technical sales pretty quickly in my first engineering job, and felt like that was more me. So it sort of led me down the sales and marketing path in my career, just selling very technical products. Um, and so that's kind of where it came together.
That's an interesting thing because I mean, I've worked with a lot of tech companies, and finding that right salesperson is often very challenging for those companies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not typically something that goes together. Um,
Right.
but it happened to be a great intersection for me, um, because being a quality engineer sitting behind a desk wasn't for me. But we're also asking people at 17, 18 to make these decisions, and we don't really know who we are or what it's like to work in a job when we choose a major, or so I was very fortunate that it worked out the way it did.
Yeah, my kids are fully grown, and the last few years there've been a lot of conversations, and both my husband and myself have had re a really crazy career path. I mean, like, I've worked in film, I had a bakery, and then there's a lot of other stuff that I did, and then my husband was a swordfish fisherman, he managed a restaurant, he worked in construction, he worked in film. So, I mean, like, I look at the kids and I'm like, you see dad in me, right? Like when they start stressing out that they haven't figured out what their career is, I'm like, You know who your parents are, right? Like you are going to change your career 7 times before you find the one. And then even then you might change it again. So, yeah.
I love seeing parents give that permission, because I think so often we get stuck in this, like, you have to know, and you pick a thing, and you go to college, and so I love the freedom to flex in it. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, my dad was a computer guy and he worked at the same company for 45 years. And I think he wanted more for me. And so when I was in marketing, I studied marketing in college. Um, he's like, "You're a marketer," and I was like, "I am not, going to be in business." I went to art school after my first year of regular college. Then I went to art school, and I think that there was a secret part of him that really loved the fact that I was just doing whatever I wanted, and here we are, right? So,
It's an exploration process, really. It's not a one and done.
yeah, I mean, Angela Duckworth. I have you ever read Grit?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, your 20s are supposed to be an experiment. They just are, and if we just realize that. And then some of us, the entrepreneurial ones, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, and 60s might be an experiment too. So, anyway, well, what an interesting career you've had. I'm curious to know if you have a story. This is Bad Boss Confessional. So, if there was something that you wanted to share with the rest of us, that would be great to hear it.
Yes. Well, as I was thinking, amongst the many examples that I have to choose from, as I was thinking about which would be the easiest to come clean on, I thought of a story, years ago when I was working with a team, and it was a company where I had become the unofficial company therapist. I heard one of my direct reports say that about me, and I guess I sort of leaned into that, and I thought, "Oh, yeah, maybe that's my gift here." I'm approachable, warm. I'm the leader that people tell the truth to. I think often in organizations there are people who are nervous to speak up, especially to leaders and owners, and tell their truth. Right? They tell you what you want to hear, what they think you want to hear, and so we had it, and actually, I'd had a situation one time where I used that, I flexed that muscle. I told something I learned in confidence, and it ended up really preventing a catastrophic situation. We had a leader who was a non-core values situation, and it had come to light, but everyone was kind of dancing around it. And so it was like, hey, you know, that is a tool. The story I was telling myself was that's useful, and I can be that conduit in this company. Um, but there was a time a few years later where I was approached again by the same person, actually, a manager at a different location who had some knowledge about a restructure and some feelings, and she came to me because she was afraid we were going to lose a really good employee. And if somebody didn't realize what was going on and have the right conversation, this rising star was looking, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, we don't want that. Greater good of the company. I'm going to share this message. Well, I shared the message, and the direct supervisor of that person was obviously shocked, had no idea how unhappy they were, pulled them aside and said, hey, I heard this. We need to have this conversation. And the person completely backpedaled it. They denied it. They just walked away from everything they'd laid on me. And so the leader's like, yeah, I didn't think that was happening. And guess what? I talked to her directly, and it's not happening. And it left me struck, right? I mean, I felt I felt foolish, and I felt let down by the person. They went there with me, and I took that for the greater good of the company and thought we could prevent another catastrophic situation. But in truth, they weren't really ready to own their news, and they didn't have the courage to share it. And for whatever reason, I thought I could solve it. That's where, the ego is stepping in, like, hey, I can swoop in and save the day.
Yeah. Ugh, that old chestnut.
Yeah. When in truth, I
Mm.
mean, going back now, looking at what I would tell younger Carolyn is like, what do you need to do here? Do you need to carry that load? um, no, I didn't. It wasn't my news to tell. It wasn't my load to carry. And it was my ego thinking I was this magical conduit. And so it was very humbling. Also, I felt undermined.
So if you had a redo of this situation, what would you do now?
Yeah. Well, now it's like, okay, let's unpack this feeling. What can I do? What do you need from me so that you can develop the words, the language, the messaging, the courage? Let's gear you up to tell your truth
Mm,
to your boss. And how can I be of service in that?
yeah, that's good.
It doesn't all come to you in a moment. It's like afterwards, it shapes up in coming days and weeks, and you think, "Oh, wow, I inserted myself there, and I really perpetuated some dysfunction, essentially." If I'm always the messenger, I'm really kind of a bottleneck, or what happens when I'm out, you know? And so maybe too, my ego, it's like the hero complex. We want to be the person who let me swoop in and solve the problem.
Yeah.
how about how about
When
let me swoop in and help you solve your own problem?
Right, a much better way to go. I think sometimes, I don't know if you grew up, maybe I'm a little older than you, but, Mighty Mouse was a big thing on TV when I was a kid, like, we had 5 channels, right? And so, "Here I come to save the day," it's like you just sometimes think, "I can do it. I'm special. I have these qualities," right? And you end up finding yourself in a sticky wicket because, you know, you thought you could save the situation, save the person, and it's all coming from a good place, right?
Yeah, I would say so, but I do think there's ego in it. there's some insecurity. There's I want to be that conduit. I want to be needed. When really sometimes as leaders, let's pull ourselves out of it. Let's let things show themselves for what they are and stop solving. And that was a real I'm just a warm helper. I mean, also I'm a writer, I'm a reader, I'm a talker. So I, you know, words sometimes are my first tool that I reach for. And there are times I heard you talk earlier on one of your other episodes about being in your 50s and learning lessons. And I was chuckling because I'm like I'm 51 and it's only been in the last maybe 5 or so years where I've started to learn to zip it. I mean, how come I'm 45 and no one's told me stop talking so much?
I know. And here's the thing is like, I mean, 60 is around the corner for me. And I'm just like, dang it, I keep learning stuff. Like I can't I can't
Well, that's
believe I haven't.
beautiful. It's also beautiful, right?
Yeah. Like, it is. And you know what? I mean, I think what's different is when you get later in life and you do get into your 50s and you know, you stop caring what other people think, right? You just don't. And it alleviates so much of the pressure of perfectionism, and especially for women, I think we feel like we have to do it all, right? And we have to do it perfectly. And um we can really beat ourselves up, but then you get into your 50s and you're just kind of like, you know what? That was a really good lesson. I learned a lot from that. And that's part of this podcast is like, like let's just talk about it, the stuff that we learned and help somebody else, help somebody listening who is in their 40s who can maybe learn from your story or some of my stories, right? So,
And I think that's something too that it, coming, migrating into the EOS world too. I think that as a leader in an organization, sometimes I felt like it was my job to have it all together, have all the answers, do all the things, carry all the loads. And I guess now I realize at 40, 50, 60, 70, the best coaches are being coached. We are all still learning. We all have an edge to push. And there's freedom in that. Um, I can think of when I was in that role and in that position, I was working a lot and I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. Why not hand something off? I mean, when I got through that episode and realized, had the ability to look back, there was relief. Like, I don't have to do all of this. I can let somebody carry that, It's like there's freedom in some of that letting go. Don't have to hold on so tight. Don't have to have it all figured out.
and I'm sure you're seeing this with your clients going
Yes.
through this process.
Yes. In so many ways. I mean, as their coach and teacher in the room, but then also looking at the expressions around the table, seeing the one person who's not talking, who you want to go over there and pull out, like, you know. Um, so yes, it's fascinating. And I think that is one of my big lessons, I think about right now too, is getting better at pausing, listening, zip it, stop to think, is this my job? Is this, as an EOS implementer, is my job to fix? No. It's easy after years of being on a leadership team where it was your job to fix.
Yes, that overwhelming sense of responsibility that makes you a great entrepreneur can sometimes get in the way when you're an EOS implementer. And at the beginning of my journey, we have our guides that kind of help us stay on track and throughout the sessions. And I had in the front of my guide uh, a laminated card that said, This is not my business. This is not my business. This is not my business. Because you want to help so hard. And just like, and the thing is, just like your kids and your direct reports, people learn best from their own experiences.
Yeah. And being a good leader for me meant coaching people to be able to do the things that maybe I had good finesse to handle. But was I really being a good leader if I wasn't helping them shore up those muscles of how to have the hard conversations and how to speak for themselves and how to look at the owner and say something uncomfortable and know it's okay. And I'm a warm, fuzzy person. I like everything to feel good. That's not a great thing as a leader. Um, I wanted that person to feel good, so I was like, "Let me handle it for you," you
Mhm.
know? But
Yeah.
wouldn't they really feel good in the long term if they were handling their own issues?
Yeah.
And then wouldn't I feel good if I was like, hands off. They can handle it without me.
Yeah, be their boss, not their buddy. We talk about that a lot in the Great Boss workshops. It's hard, especially if you're a high I, disc profiles, like you're somebody that really likes people, you're a people person.
I'm an 81 in the eye. Yes. You're probably not
Yeah.
shocked.
No, I'm a D. Sometimes my D and my I, they kind of like go like this, but I'm very high D, very high I. My S is as low as it can be. And then
Interesting.
and then my C comes up. So there's a bit of a analytical bent. But yeah, I am not slow and steady wins the race. Unfortunately, that is not my thing.
Well, good to know. Good to know who we
Yes,
are, right?
it is. It is because then you have that to work with. What's your disc? Are you mostly I?
Yes, mostly I. My S and C are pretty stable. My D is slightly higher. I don't know my numbers off the top of my head, but my D is higher than my S and C. But my I is, yeah, it's a singular peak up there.
Yes. Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, we're talking about disc profiles, and you can take a disc assessment online. I'm sure that you can pay $50 to somebody and you can get one. But it's a personality test, and we're big fans of these assessments because they help us learn who we are, know thyself, right? And the more we know ourselves and the teammates that we have, the easier it becomes to work with people because we know how they're wired. It's kind of like having a decoder ring on, your team members. And so disc isn't as big in the EOS community as Colby is, but they're very helpful. So yeah. Um, all right. So now that you're an EOS implementer, are you do you recognize when your teams are asking you to be the team therapist? Because you probably have some of those same characteristics that come out during sessions, right?
Yes. Yes. And I can see it not so much in session, but maybe more in follow-up calls with owners, um, where it is maybe a little bit more appropriate or common. There might be some conversations had with owners but yes, I absolutely see it in the session. I see my tendency to want to fix or
Mhm.
suggest
Mhm.
or be the therapist. When I was in grade school, that's what I wanted to do, be a psychiatrist, by the
Uh-huh.
way. So it's
Yeah.
funny that this like coaching therapist thing has shown up in my life because maybe I somehow knew this. But
Yeah.
um yeah, no, it's one of my work-ons. You talk about what's laminated in your leadership team guide. I think for me it would be not that I've laminated anything. Very impressed that you laminated it. But it would be something to do with being quiet, or zipping it, let it come out.
Yeah, I mean, having those visual reminders, and I think for anybody, I mean, we've all got our thing, right? It's my sister and I used to say that. Everybody's got their thing. We'll return to my conversation with Carolyn after a word from our sponsors. Do you love running on EOS? Try Strutty, the EOS platform people love. Native integrations and extra features help you manage people, projects, process, and engagement. Connected to your favorite EOS tools and all in one place. You love EOS. It's time to love the platform you're running it on. Try Strutty free at strutty.com. That's STRETY.com. Strutty, the EOS platform people love. Let's be honest, hiring the right people is hard. That's why I love Titus Talent Strategies. Their whole person hiring approach helps you find and keep A players who align with your values, and they back it with an industry leading guarantee. Best part? Titus Talent Strategies is included in the entrepreneurial toolkit for companies running on EOS. Check them out at titustalent.com/EOS. And now back to my conversation with Carolyn. So, visual reminders, yes, visual reminders. For a lot of people, they get tattoos. I full disclaimer, I have no tattoos, but I'm tattoo curious, and so
Are you?
one day maybe, one day maybe. But if you were to get a tattoo of the thing that you needed to remember, maybe it's in relation to this story, maybe it's something different or something that's meaningful to you. What would your tattoo be, and where would it be located?
Well, this is really hard for me because I am not a tattoo person. Um, so it would have to be a henna tattoo. It would have to be a temporary tattoo. I don't trust myself to make a permanent fixture on my body that I may want, right? Which is why I have no tattoos. Um, so that's interesting. I suppose I had a friend once who got a tattoo behind her ear because she's OCD and she wanted a tattoo, but she didn't want to look at it and like regret that the line wasn't straight or symmetric. So she put it behind her ear. And I thought that was so interesting. Now, that wouldn't work. Now, that would be great for me because it would be out of sight and I wouldn't have to see it. But it wouldn't work for a mantra because a mantra has to be present. And so I suppose, your finger, your wrist, your arm, somewhere present, if I was really trying to be something that would ground me, that I would. And again, couldn't over the course of my life, I've had so many mantras and words of the years and things that it would be hard. But I think right now, what I'm leading into is let it be easy. Let it be easy. Even the hard things. Like, what if I decided that my son's car breaking down, like we can let this be easy. We don't have to make this hard. Let's this problem we're about to face, let's let it be easy. What if we approached it? So this is kind of like my current mantra, I guess. So that would probably have to be my tattoo. Let it be easy.
I love that. That's a good one. You should write a book.
Oh, there might be a book in my future.
Yeah,
Or
you
two or
should write
three,
a
we'll
book.
see.
Yeah, I mean, if you can make a book out of Let Them, I think you can make a book out of
Yes.
Let It Be Easy.
Yes, right, right.
Well, it's been lovely having this conversation today, Carolyn. I'm so glad to get to know you a little bit better. I feel like you're going to be a great implementer and a
Oh
really
gosh, thank you.
lovely fixture in our Chicago community for sure. So, or in the greater Chicagoland area, since you do kind of are a little further out. But I'm so glad to have you as part of our community, and I'm really enjoying getting to know who you are. So thanks for sharing a piece of yourself here today.
Well, it was fun. I enjoyed it, enjoyed the connection, and loved hearing in preparing, listening to so many people that I think so much of share their stories. It really is brings a little warmth to your heart to know we've all been there, right?
I'm glad we got to meet, and have a great weekend. And I will see you at the next CCE.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks so much, Beth. Take care.
Thanks to Carolyn Mitchell for sharing her story about learning how to become a coach instead of a fixer. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who needs to hear this. Thanks for listening to Bad Boss Confessional. We'll see you next week.